In today's podcast, a deep dive into weight loss medications with one of the world's foremost experts. It's an episode you don't want to miss. Are you ready to launch a side gig, maybe a small project or business? Need a professional logo that won't break the bank? Looka is the AI-powered logo maker that's perfect for entrepreneurs and freelancers. With Looka, you can create a stunning, unique logo in minutes without breaking the bank. Just answer a few simple questions about your brand and watch as Looka generates hundreds of custom logo options. It's like having a team of professional designers at your fingertips. So why settle for ordinary when you can have extraordinary? Visit natalietizdal.com/favorites and start creating the logo your side gig or your small project deserves. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Natalie Tisdale podcast. If you're joining for the very first time, I'm really glad you're here. In today's episode, I am talking with an old friend and an expert, Dr. Michael Snyder. I have interviewed him hundreds of times. He is a renowned weight loss surgeon and expert with over 2 decades of experience, but he doesn't just do surgery. We're going to talk safety, side effects, long-term weight loss, and more. I love Dr. Snyder for his very frank and often funny way of hitting some really hard topics. It's a heartfelt and very informative conversation that explores the deeper issues of self-worth, mental health, and effective strategies for managing your weight. I'm excited to get started today, so let's not waste any time. Here's my interview with Dr. Michael Snyder. Dr. Snyder, it's been a few years since we've spoken on the podcast. Things have changed dramatically in the world of weight loss since we spoke last.
They have. I mean, I've been doing this for a couple decades. I know I look much younger. And in doing this, I've been really specializing in how to help people with the path of weight loss, meeting with them where they are. And most people, it's, how do I change my life? How do I change my behaviors? How is that helpful or not? Because it hasn't always been durable for me. It hasn't really worked. To people that are like, my life and my health are really going to ruin. You need to make some big changes. What can I do? And there's really different ways of looking at it. One is what you can bring to the game, and now is what we can give you to help you with your efforts. And there's a range of things depending on your comfort level, safety profile, your health, and really what your tolerances of life change.
Well, so let's talk about your background a little bit. I've told people who you are and what you do, but for most of your career as a doctor, you've done surgery to help people with this. And I know you've told me before, it's like in the hundreds of thousands probably of
Really?
people
It's a
that
lot.
you.
So I do this a lot. The average bariatric surgeon does about 220 cases a year. I've been up to 500 cases a year, and I run a program with 5 other surgeons plus 4 general surgeons. So we're all in with bariatric surgery. And that really is the cornerstone of what we've done for so long, kind of until now. Things really changed in October. I've always been about minimally invasive surgery, big changes in anatomy to help you make big physiologic changes. And the results are seismic. I mean, the results, I don't deal with people that want to lose 15, 20 pounds usually. This is people that are severely or morbidly obese, that it's affecting their life, health, and their quality of life. And we'll talk about genetics and epigenetics because it's not like, oh, screw it, I'm going to have surgery. I mean, these are people that really are epigenetically defined to have weight issues and have done everything. As of October of this year, it's really changed. We've always had a medical and behavioral branch of our program, but with the revolution in the GLP-1 agonist drugs that we'll talk about, the ones that everyone's talking about, it's really changed our armamentarium. It's given us a lot better tools for sort of the middle group or people that aren't ready for a big change like that.
So what are these GLP-1 antagonists? Did I say it right? Antagonists.
Yeah, agonists. So they stimulate GLP-1 receptor.
And so let's break that down a little bit, because a year ago, 2 years ago, we're hearing people, you see all the celebrities losing massive amounts of weight, and they're saying, I did Ozempic, and Sharon Osbourne was the first one I remember, and she lost so much weight and then said, I probably lost too much. And it was like, is this a magic pill, or what is it, and is it safe?
That's a really good question. So the category is a GLP-1 agonist. You have GLP-1 receptors in your brain, in your gut. And hunger is really, hunger is not like I need to eat more because I'm hungry. It's a real physiological, often physiologic thing. There's some psychological and emotional components which we can talk about. So the GLP-1 receptors, it start with something called liraglutide, which was a daily injection, used to be called Saxenda, and then eventually branched out to Ozempic, which was once a week. Now they have Tirzepatide, or that's what went from liraglutide to semaglutide. All right, and Tirzepatide is the new one, which is a GLP-1 agonist with a GIP, which is a different receptor. So there's really the two categories. Okay, the GLP-1 agonists, those with or without the GIP. No one wants to know that. Okay, and so those are the Ozempics, the Wagovis, the Zepbounds, the Mounjaros. Okay, and those are the different categories. In those, it really is the first time we had a physiologic advantage. It was found with Ozempic, which is a diabetes drug. We've been around for about 7 years. And people were using it to control diabetes, and they noticed that there was a seismic weight loss. Now, as much as we hate diabetes and want to control it, we don't hate people with diabetes, but we hate diabetes because it's a real scourge on society. What we hate more is weight issues.
Yeah.
And so what they found is the results were astounding. People lost like 15, 16% of their body weight using this drug over 60, 70 weeks. So it was something. And as you can imagine with a drug company, that something is going to be big dollars. And it's exploded from there. It's got up to the Tirzepatides, which is about 20% of your weight off. And there are ones coming out, which are probably going to be 25, 30%. And these are all injections right now, but they're working on pill versions. They're working on different injection versions. So that's a big overstatement of everything we have now. And I can drill down on it every way to Sunday.
Well, yes, I know you can. You're good at that. Is it something that our bodies naturally produce?
Well, these receptors are in your body, right? And you're stimulating them with various things we do and eat and how we live our life. And so many factors come into wellness, from emotionality to what we eat, to the quality of food we put in terms of macronutrient breakdown, to sleep, to exercise. There's so many things, but these receptors are receptors, and these are just drugs that stimulate that. I mean, eating stimulates that. And so being full with less and being less hungry has to do with the brain and gut part of it, but also the functional flowing of your gut. When people say, wow, I'm on this drug and I feel like I'm so full for 3 or 4 hours after eating, it's not true. They say that people talk about gastroparesis, the flowing of your stomach. That's a big ticket item to call it gastroparesis, but you do slow gastric emptying. And so that feeling of slow gastric emptying plus decreased hunger is super powerful. I mean, one of the horrors I hear on a regular basis is people that are on these that say, I'm so full and I'm not hungry. Yesterday I had a salad and a yogurt. Now we'll talk about healthful eating with or without these. That's not a good way of being, but they don't really feel like they need more often.
So someone who is 20 pounds overweight, 15, 20, or maybe their hormones are changing, they're going through menopause, like this is a safe option for them if they're following what I'm hearing from you, if they're following the right guidelines, still eating well,
and I think that's,
exercising.
We talked about that. You're the people that are watching this, you have the people that are severely morbidly obese. They need to come in. It doesn't mean they need surgery, but they need a big strategy because it's going to really injure them physically. The middle ground of people with, 40, 50, 30, 40, 50 pounds to lose, they need some good strategies, probably need a little more advanced help. And the people that with modest weight, not necessarily that classically qualify for these drugs with a BMI of 27 with a hard problem or a BMI of 30, they just said, I gained 15 pounds. There's not a classic clinical indication, but people are using it all over the world for that. The question is it effective and is it safe? Always have it done with a real medical provider, and it can be done online. I have no problem with that. And make sure that you're having your labs checked and that it's something you can tolerate. There are people that can't tolerate it or need to mitigate or change what they're doing. Okay, so is there a safety of these? These have been proven to be generally safe. There are people that don't tolerate them and people that have problems with them. There's some thyroid issues you need to be aware of that could be catastrophically problematic. As you've heard, some people get pancreatitis, rare. It can affect psychological parameters. You have to be really on board with the medical team that's helping you with this.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. You can get these just about anywhere. I've seen, the med spas that have them, and online, just finding someone to prescribe it online. Are you concerned about that? And where should people go? Their general practitioner? You're training these people. I know you're teaching people how to use it. Yeah.
I've become wildly popular. So there's really, two classes of caregivers and 2 glasses of drugs. Okay. And this is really down in their discussion. There's your classic in a doctor, nurse practitioner, PA, APP, nurses helping it through a medical clinic. That's one way to do it. And we do it in that practice. I have a huge bariatric obesity metabolic program. We have our hands tied in certain ways and we're held to certain standards. And then there's the more casual ways, the med spas or the online practitioners. Honestly, I don't have a problem with either. I wouldn't advocate one versus the other, but I have an idea of no matter who you use, how it should go. And no matter who you use, how it should go is it has to be run by a real doctor or an APP, an advanced practice practitioner. Someone that has some training beyond just I'm going to write you a script. And I have no problem doing it online or remotely with your doctor or someone else. I have no problem. I do always recommend having baseline labs because there are some things that could be problematic as a buy-in point or long-term. And I do believe it always should be done with real nutritional guidance. And I'm not talking about your latest Instagram craze. I'm talking about, I really recommend having nutritional guidance. And I prefer a dietitian, RD or RDN, and I'm not selling that. It's just that the numbers that everyone in the world is quoting to you have to do with that 15% with semaglutide, 20% with tirzepatide. If you look at the studies, and it doesn't take much looking to see that the successes are notably better, and the ones that we're quoting have ILI, intensive lifestyle intervention, as a cornerstone of the care. Many of these drug studies to the first month or two of just that before the drug was started. We got to reprogram how you eat for nutrition and for success with weight loss, and really for vitality. You don't just want to lose weight. You've seen the people that look like they're deflated at Starbucks. Yeah. They don't look healthier, they look skinnier. And so you and I, your passion, I know, is giving people healthful avenues to change their life. And it has to be done healthfully. And that's not selling more services. That's kind of getting the craziness out of your mind and using science.
I've seen people those are the ones you're mentioning, where the weight starts dropping, but they don't look healthy. And it's like, if maybe you're not hungry, so you just don't eat all day or halfway through the day. And then what you do eat isn't good for you. Like, it's got to be, and this is what I'm hearing you say, it has to be coupled with food, exercise. You can't just take it, which, by the way, we need to talk about the expense of it, because you can't just pay the money to drop some weight and expect your life is going to be better. What are people paying for this? And are there options to not pay as much? Because it can be pricey, right?
Sure. Obviously, if your insurance covers it, and there's a variety of different insurance criteria, unfortunately or fortunately, a huge part of my office time is spent with my staff trying to get this approved for people. Yeah. So classically, a BMI of 27 with a real comorbidity, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease sometimes qualifies you, pre-diabetes. It depends on your insurance, or BMI of 30 plus. Those could sometimes qualify you. Often they ask for labs. They want to know your A1C, your diabetes levels, stuff like that. So if we can get it covered, it's usually a pretty good deal. Often if we write it, you can get online coupons. A lot of ones, Zepbound is one. I'm not selling it, but here's a Zepbound pen. Okay. That often, you can get coupons which decrease it. So at the highest, I've seen people pay $1,000 to $1,200. With coupons, I've seen like $550. And there are people that are using compounding pharmacies through their providers. And we can talk about that if you want. And those usually are a little more competitively priced, but still in the hundreds per month.
Why are they using compound pharmacies? What's the difference in what they're getting?
So the number I've heard, and no one knows this number, and this was based on a few months ago, there's about 8 million people on prescription versions of these drugs, and they say 8 to 10 million on compounding versions. No one really knows if that's a real number, but it seems like it's probably about right. I would never quote me. And compounded means there's an avenue for getting drugs that aren't the FDA approved version of. And that has to do, and it's in the FDA. I've looked at the government sites on this. If there are things, if you have certain allergies to meds, you may use a compounded version. If there's shortened needs, you can use a compounded version, things like that. In this realm, the compounding pharmacies, the non-FDA type pharmacies, have made preparations of these drugs, which are slightly different, but analogous, similar, and they sell them as a trade name with a similar mode of action. Okay. And so people say, well, they must be crappy if they're not from an FDA pharmacy. And I'm not advocating you're using them, but I just want to put it in your brain how it works. all of these compounding pharmacies are looked at by the FDA. They just don't have the same level of oversight. So if you have to research the pharmacy that you're getting it from and make sure it's a 503, a 503A and B or different versions of it. You don't need to know those numbers, but they are checked out and they are followed and they have to report adverse outcomes and problems. So I don't really have a problem with compounding. In my practice, I don't really use them because I work for a large corporation, doesn't really allow that, but I'm not against it.
Yeah. So they're sometimes putting other things in it, but there's the people who's maybe they're getting it compounded. You're not worried that it's not safe.
As long as it's done from a pharmacy that has a 503 certification and one that, I mean, most of these compounding pharmacies also have an FDA pharmacy right next door. This is just a different version of drug. There's one that I've, that I've been asked questions about, so consulted with that. It's the same as the exact same pharmacy, but in a different room with the same equipment, making this compounded version of the drug. So I can't say, well, this must be bad. I can't say that.
Let's talk about coming off of. So say someone, they do this for 6 months, a year, they lose the 10, 20 pounds, whatever it is. How do they have to stay on it? Do they come off of it and then all of a sudden they're starving and they gain the weight back?
It's an excellent question. So, it's funny, people are like, you need to be on these for life. I mean, Ozempic's only been around for 7 years. What? That's not, unless you're 7 years old, that's not for life. And so no one really knows. I never say you need to start them to stop them. You have to really honor the obesity process. And Natalie, I think this is a really big topic we should drill into because it kind of honors your viewership's health. Everyone with weight struggles, whether they're real physiologic causing you problems or they're just messing with your head or you're just not comfortable, you've got to figure out what's going on. And it's never a blame and shame game. Unfortunately, it's so public, you may feel bad about it or you don't feel fit in your jeans the way you want. But there's really two categories of weight. Okay, and this is super simplistic, but I really think it's important. People that really have weight issues and struggles, people that really have that same X amount of pounds they can't lose, and your viewership works really hard. Yeah. They've spent the time, they've done the exercise, they've changed their eating habits, they've gotten good advice, and it just yo-yos back and forth around a number they're not comfortable. There's probably an epigenetic component, okay? This is the first category. And this goes from people with BMI of 50 to BMI of 30, 27, that just can't really get it together. Epigenetics is how you're wired, and epi is what you do to annoy your genes, okay? And I'll explain that in the way that we all understand. Everyone in the world is affected by depression, either personally, familially, or socially. Depression is endemic in our society. And it's not that people with depression are weak or just can't get their act together or improve their mood. They got a real issue. And it's usually they're wired to have a degree of depression, but something triggers it. There are people that bad things happen and they're like, I'm fine, we got over it. And there are people that it messes with them and people that it ruins them. Yeah. And it's not a sign of their weakness. They're genetically defined to have a reaction in life to what the stresses of life come in. We all understand that. We all honor people and have grace in them. Weight's the same way. But for some reason, we don't accept that, and that's horrific. People with weight issues, it's not that they're lazy. It's not that they have a bad attitude. It's not that they dysregulate to eat. It's that that's what they respond to in terms of the stimulus of their environment. They gain weight or can't lose weight. Yeah. And so I think we have to just slow it down at that point. Like, where are we coming from? At that point, there are people whose diet and behaviors are off the rails. And that's not bad. Mine has been off the rails. I've yo-yoed, as I'm sure you have, in everyone. Mm-hmm. Unless you're truly genetically blessed. And we know those people and they piss us. But that's the time to really drill down on diet and behaviors. And that doesn't mean to ask your friend or go to your Instagram. That means to get some professional involvement. I'm not against I'm not against trainers to help with training. I'm against them doing a lot of diet recommendations because it's usually off the rails. Get a dietitian. It's probably covered by your insurance. Have someone that really professionally just reset you. Do a real deep look into it. Track it. Use Chronometer. Use MyFitness. Whatever. Yeah. Just let's slow down and figure out where you're coming from. There's usually low-hanging fruit in diet and behavior we all can hit on and what it's doing for us. Yeah. Activity, you got to have activity. And activity, unfortunately, is more than you want. Yeah. To, quote, prevent modest weight gain. This is the regulation from the American College of Sports Medicine. To prevent modest weight gain, okay, that's a pretty crappy endorsement. You have to do 300 minutes of aerobic activity plus 2 days of strength training a week. That is a lot.
That is a lot.
It's a lot. So I don't recommend that because it's scary. But you got to do something.
What is,
And
okay, so but you say that, okay, I'm just gonna stop right there. You say that, and you're like, okay, wait, what does that mean to just not prevent? Is that like I try to say a walk in the morning, a nice walk in the afternoon, a little bit, what is a daily to prevent modest weight gain? What does that really
and this
look
is the
like?
thing. So people hear that and they go, oh, shoot, that's a lot. I can't do that. So the one
How do we
thing,
break that down?
the
Yeah.
cold water for everyone listening to this is really important. The physiologic improvement, the leap in health, quality of life, and quality of life parameters from couch potato doing nothing to casual everyday walker is friggin' astronomically high.
Yes.
To become active in any regard is incredibly important. From the
Yeah.
casual everyday walker to Boston Marathon finisher, not very impressive. Don't join a CrossFit gym unless that's your jam. You don't need to. It doesn't make you. So what you said, the thing that the American College of Sports Medicine said in about 2016 is that aggregate exercise counts. If you want to do 30 minutes a day, if you do 10, 10, 10, that counts. It's the same as doing 30
Yeah.
straight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
zone 2, which is you could breathe through your nose the whole time, counts. Like,
That
like
that's
everyone
good
should just
news.
slow
Yeah.
down.
But it's his habits. Like it's find a habit that works for you. Doesn't have to be the marathon or
No.
CrossFit, like you said, but a habit that maybe is walking your dog. Maybe it's, do you like the 10,000 steps? That's kind of the thing that I've given myself. You know,
10,000 steps.
it
But
gives you a goal that's attainable and it doesn't have to be running or CrossFit or anything.
yeah, I don't like tracking stuff on me, and it's not like a political thing. I just don't like. I guess I have skinny wrists, so I don't like to watch. But it looks like my big brother's watch. I like distance. So for me, I love 100 miles a month, which is 3.1 miles a day. And if you miss it, it's 6.2 tomorrow. It's
Hmm.
3.1 miles, and most people can do a mile in 15, maximum 20 minutes. That's very
Yeah.
doable. And it really kind of you feel like a total badass if you do 100 miles a month. So
Yeah, you
3.1
do.
miles,
But 3 a day sounds like, okay, kind of hard, but I could probably break it up and do a
do
morning and an
50,
afternoon or yeah.
do 50 miles,
Yeah.
1.6 miles a day. That's
Yeah.
fine. Like, I
You
mean,
could do
like,
that.
like
Yeah.
do something and make it measurable and reward yourself for it. And I'm a real big fan of stacking habits. You know what that is?
Yes. Well, I learned about this maybe 6 months ago or so when I was struggling taking my vitamins. Like, well, if I take my vitamins when I brush my teeth, that's what stacking habits, right? You've got a
Totally.
habit you always do, so put something else by it. Yeah.
And I like it with rewards. So I'll give you an example. I know many people that take Instagram and Facebook off their phone until they've exercised.
Oh,
That they
that's a good one.
delete it and
Yeah.
have to re-download it. I know a lot of people that only download it on Friday if they've
Wow.
done 4 days of exercise. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I know it's hard. Like we're going to go to withdrawal. We're going to have a recovery program for people doing that. But it's important for me. And I work out almost every morning. My wife does also. We don't necessarily do it together, but the reward is at 6:05 we have a latte in the hot tub, and but that's the reward of exercising.
That's great. That's so good. We do kind of, I know I do. And a lot of people, we reward ourselves before we do something. And it's not helping. It's not helping if we have the latte and then go, now I should exercise. Uh, okay. So
And if anybody comes to me, I could find them their reward. And the one thing, this is the one thing, and I'm sorry to be, this is the one thing your viewers are going to hate me about. I don't believe in, I don't have time. Because if I took your phone out right now and I looked at your screen time, you'd be embarrassed about the amount of lights you're pissing away by playing with your phone. And I'm not anti-phone, but I know the toxicity that had been in my life that I had to get out, and that's probably TMI. But that's not valid. That's not valid because you're angry. Your kids are doing too much messing around and stuff, and you probably are also. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person, but earn it. Earn that time by doing something that's good for you. Because I know for all the people that are watching you, the better they do, the better everyone around them do.
yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really important. That if you are one of the benchmark people in your family, the dad or the mom that's really holding it together, even if you're not getting the credit which you deserve, by the way, you need to take care of yourself because when you do well, everyone does well. When you feel bad, it makes everybody feel bad. So we got to get you to who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've been guilty of that. I still am. I struggle. And then I wonder why my teenage son, it's like, well, he's going to do what I do. So I have to set that example. And I love the idea, and I'm going to start this of making that the reward. Because if that's the thing that you struggle with and you want it so badly, make it the reward. Yeah, don't.
Wouldn't it be cool if you posted every day at 3 o'clock, hey, I finished my workouts for the day. Now I can play on Facebook. And
Yeah.
people are like, what's Natalie doing? Man, I want to do what she's doing.
Maybe I'll
Everyone
have to
wants
do.
to be like you, so that's a good thing.
I don't know about that, but it's the reward. It's the latte. It's the whatever, That's great. I love it. Okay. So we talked about, the coming
So
off of these drugs, and that we talked about that. Is there anything else about it that you want people to know?
the drugs are used in the right program. We've talked about that with dietary and lifestyle interventions is critical to be managed throughout. And then the drugs are not hard and fast rules. There's general guidelines, which I teach on incremental changes in dosage over time.
Hmm.
You can change the dosage, you can change the time intervals, you can extend the dosage. So when you get to a certain point, you have to decide there's no harm in increasing the dosage interval from 7 to 10 days or 12 days with medical guidance. There's no harm in changing the dosing strategy. That's something you have to work out with your provider. And it doesn't mean you're failing it, but if you've reached your goal, a lot of people want to change how they're doing it or stop altogether. There are people that sequentially come on and off it, which I don't advocate, but I don't think there's been shown any harm in doing so. The data is, though, people with real weight loss that come off it cold turkey gain back notable weight in the short term. Okay. And that's important because a lot of those people came out of the program, so they lost a lot of the programmatic support too. So what I would recommend is use the time on the medication to change your life and your behaviors, and then see how those sustain you if or when you drop down on dosing, increase interval, or come off it.
Okay.
And there's no shame in needing support, whether it's medication or otherwise afterwards. We don't know what happens in the long term over 10 years, people that come on and off it 5 times. I can't imagine it would be problematic, but I don't know.
Yeah. But for people who are, I just can't drop this weight, you get the weight off, you change some lifestyle stuff, as I know you promote, and so important.
Yeah.
And it's the boost they need to get that started. Like you're saying, there's nothing wrong with it for the average person. I think there was that stigma at first, like it was cheating, like a year or two ago. It was like, oh, they're cheating. They're taking this magic thing that Hollywood is showing, but you're saying it's not. It's a great boost in getting to that next level.
I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of this. My cholesterol is up and I'm super fit. That's kind of my thing. I'm super old, but I'm super fit. And it's to calm my demons. That's a whole nother lecture. But I have high cholesterol, and I spent 2 years trying to fix it. And I mean, trying, like, I'm married to a dietitian. Okay. And I got it down 20 points, but it was still too high. And my doctor said to me, this is your one modifiable risk factor. You got to let me help you. You got to take a step. And I said, no, it means I'm old. I have chronic medical problems. My wife's not going to like me as much. And she's like, just tell her to take the stupid statin. And I took it. And I'm not saying it gave me permission to eat more crap, but it really honored my thing. It was my genetics that I was fighting so hard to fix. And I was really beating myself up about it. And I know my patients' weight loss struggles is very analogous. Everything is not within your control. And to get help to be more effective, I'm a mission guy. What's your mission? Your mission is not to spend your whole friggin' life messing with your weight.
Yeah.
You got better things to do. And if you can get tools to durably and effectively help you to get your brain in gear to live the life that you were created to live, you better do that.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for explaining this to us, for helping people who have struggled with it. And I know we talked about that. I mean, we've probably been talking for 20 years because I've been interviewing you that long. And things that have stuck with me over the years that you have said, many of the sound bites are, if you're worried that you can't go to the beach because you got to put on a bikini, if you're worried that you can't wear that dress to the wedding, then you've got a problem. That's something you can handle.
Right. And it's funny. I have people come in that lose weight and they're like, well, now my husband thinks I'm fine. And I'm like, I know your husband. He really was into you before. You didn't think you were. You didn't believe him. And that's a big problem. And anything I can do to help you and your listeners, I'm honored to. I take this very seriously. I see the pain in people, even when they quote, don't have a lot to lose, but it's ruining what they think of themselves.
Yeah.
And if this will make a difference in your life, this is really a revolution. These drugs are as revolutionary as the polio vaccine. It's changing the world in such an amazing way. Sure, there's some toxicity in people's brains and abuse of this, I guess, but that's not our job to judge that. You have to live your life, and I support that. Just be safe.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much. I'll be sure and put some links in. Anybody here, do you help people that are outside of we're both in Colorado and Denver, but do you have remote people that you help as well?
Sure. I do. I help all the time, and I have a lot of resources also. If you don't particularly want to come through my program, I have a lot of resources I can help you with. And I'm also happy to vet some of your things that you're thinking about. Like if you have people with questions, I'll do a question and answer thing. If you post them, I'll answer the questions for you. I feel really honored to help. For me, this is a passion because I just see the pain and shame and blame in people's eyes. And I just don't think it's okay because this is really important. Of all the people you and your listenerships are friends with, and the people they love, how much of their loving someone is based on how much they weigh? And the answer is going to be none. I don't care. I love them the way they are. But when we put that value on ourselves, I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. I feel bad. I can't be in this situation because of my weight. You're basically saying that it's the most important thing or one of the most important things. And that's really catastrophically problematic. We've got to get that pain out of you.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love talking to you. You encourage us in such great ways. Thank you so much. It's great to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining the Natalie Tisdale podcast. You can follow along on Instagram and at natalietisdale.com. Subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave a review so I can continue to bring you fresh content. See you next week.